Hi, everyone. Just about to get started with our webinar today. I just wanted to make sure I had good sound and good video for everyone. I think I'm a little low. I'm going to try and boost my sound. If anybody's listening, can you let me know? How does it sound? Am I loud enough? I used to work in radio, so sound is very important to me. I'm Monica Brain. I'm project specialist with AMERIND Critical Infrastructure. And today I'm going to talk to you about grants. I have a presentation I'm going to share. But yeah, just in a few minutes, we'll wait till the webinar is about to start. And I'll tell you more about AMERIND Critical Infrastructure. I have about 25 slides today full of grant opportunities for tribes. I'm really excited about that. Excited to share those with you. I know this current administration has done a lot of cuts to funding, and so it was really nice to be able to go through grants.gov and find a number of grants available to tribes. It was really, really encouraging. All right, let's see if I can get this audio to be any better. No, cancel that. So if there's anybody joining us right now, say hello. We're just about to get started. More federal grant opportunities for tribes. I'll take my badge off so it doesn't clang during the... If you can hear me, if you wouldn't mind typing into the chat to let me know that you can hear me. Bruce, wonderful. I am delighted to have you. All we need is one person and then we can get started. I'm so glad to hear that the sound is working. I can see the picture is working. So that's always good to have technology available. All right. Well, my clock says 11 o'clock, so I am going to go ahead and get started. My name is Monica Brain, and I am project specialist for AMERIND Critical Infrastructure. And today I'm going to talk to you about federal grant opportunities that are available for tribes. So bear with me while I share my PowerPoint. All right. So, as I said, I'm project specialist for AMERIND Critical Infrastructure. The director of AMERIND Critical Infrastructure is Felix McGowan, and we are the only team in AMERIND that is all native. Of course, that was not that hard to accomplish as we are only two of us. Here's what we do. So we're a consulting company inside of AMERIND. And if you don't know about AMERIND, we are the only tribally owned insurance company in the United States. I'm guessing possibly the world. AMERIND Critical Infrastructure was founded in 2009. And it really came about by having conversations with AMERIND members about where they needed support. What were the areas that they needed help with? And infrastructure was one of the areas, specifically broadband. Internet in Indian country is not great. And tribes have been basically building their own internet service providers because they've been overlooked. And there's been a lot of funding for tribes to do that in the last 5 years. So today, what we do is project management, grant writing, IT consulting, and strategic planning. And if you're interested in working with us, my contact information will be at the end of the presentation. Or you can always call AMERIND and ask to speak with the folks at Critical Infrastructure. All right, so I want to talk about federal grants. As of today, there are about 418 federal grants available for tribes or tribal associations. When I last looked, 509 of those, so like filtering out was a little bit challenging with the grants.gov, were for health and human services. And specifically what those are National Institute of Health grants for research opportunities. For some reason, tribes are permitted to apply for those, but they don't really relate to the kind of funding that we need in Indian country. So if you get rid of the NIH, there's between 48 and I would say 65 grants open for tribal governments right now. And one of the things that I've been noticing is that some of the grant application windows are very short. They might open up on July 2nd and close August 2nd, which is not a long time to get a major funding opportunity together, a request for major funding. So our recommendation is if there's a grant that you find in this presentation or on grants.gov, start planning for it now, because these are, big applications that take a lot of work to put together. Often you have to do a tribal council resolution to show that it's okay to apply for this grant. And so all of these things take time. We always recommend start planning right away. As soon as the notice of funding comes out, start writing the grant. And if you need some help, obviously AMERIND Critical Infrastructure is available to help you with it. Okay, I wanted to start with the National Park Service grants. My personal favorite is the Redwoods National Park. The Historic Preservation Fund has a number of grants coming up. The deadlines are in orange, and the ones I wanted to talk to you about today really have to do with rehabilitation of historic properties or fostering economic development in rural communities. That's the Paul Brunn Historic Revitalization Subgrant Program. So the way I've set this up is the numbers in parentheses are the total amount that is available for tribes or for anyone who's applying for these grants, and then the minimum to maximum. And I think those are numbers that are important to think about, because if your tribe doesn't have the capacity to, let's say, manage a $5 million grant, and that's the minimum that you can apply for, then that probably isn't going to be a good grant for you. Or, for example, you'll see in here, some of these are minimum $1. I don't know who would spend their time applying for a grant for $1. So, so we have a number of National Park Service grants coming up June 23rd for the Paul Brunn Historic Revitalization Subgrant Program. Semi-quincentennial grants are due June 30th, and these are to celebrate the a fund for physical preservation to properties listed in the National Historic Register, but they also need to tie in the 250th anniversary somehow in your grant activities. The annual Tribal Historic Preservation Office grants are projects for tribal historic preservation officers, or TIPOs as they're sometimes called. And that deadline is June 30th. There's 83,000 to 181,000 with a total of 23 million available. Underrepresented Communities grants is due July 7th, and you can get between 15,000 to 100,000. They have 1.2 million total. Those grants are for nominating nominations of historic sites associated with communities that are underrepresented on the National Historic Register. And then tribal heritage grants. These grants assist tribes, Alaska Natives, and Native Hawaiian organizations in protecting and promoting their unique tribal heritage and traditions. And the deadline for that is going to be July 27th. You can get between 15,000 and 100,000 with a total of 967,000 available. So you want to definitely take a look at these grants. Most of them, from my understanding, there's no cost sharing required. So that's always good for, particularly for tribes that don't have a lot of extra money to match to funding. USDA grants. So US Department of Agriculture. The ACER Access and Development Program, the name doesn't really tell you what it's about, but it's for the production of maple syrup. And you can get between 200,000 and 500,000 to promote maple syrup production. And I know we have some sugar bushing tribes in our communities, so definitely take a look at that. Another interesting thing that USDA does is they did get into the broadband game. So there's Community Connect grant program. The deadline is coming up on June 29th. And you can get between 100,000 and 5 million for this. This is to connect community anchor institutions to the internet. The catch with this one is that the speeds that you currently have on those institutions are very low in order to qualify for it. And so basically this is a grant that's really good for a community, a tribe that is just absolutely not connected to the internet, or you have a building that can't be connected because of issues, and there's money available for that. But most of us have some sort of connection right now that is higher than what this grant application requires. The Rural Business Development Grant Program under the Rural Transportation Systems, and then the overall Rural Business Development Grant Program are both due on June 30th. And so rural means 50,000, a population of 50,000 or less. And it's the development grant program is for business opportunities, business development grants, things like that. And the transportation is to improve transportation systems so that you can improve rural business in your areas. And there's you can get up to 650,000 for the transportation grant, and the Rural Business Development Grant Program has 27 million in it. It didn't have a maximum or a minimum listed. And then we have distance learning and telemedicine grants. And again, this is a broadband grant that helps you connect your community specifically for telemedicine, which is, you know, seeing your doctor online and things like that. So let's say that you at your tribal library, you want to put a sound proof booth up so people can come and have a telemedicine appointment with their doctor with privacy. There's 27 million set aside for these types of activities, and it's definitely worth taking a look at. The Department of Housing and Urban Development grants. So most of these grants are forecasted, which means that they are not officially open yet, and the notice of funding has not been published yet. But I'm still going to talk about them because if you need money in your community for any of these issues, keep an eye out on grants.gov, and hopefully the funding opportunity will show up. The one that is open is the Continuum of Care and Youth Homelessness Demonstration Program grants. There's 4 billion available, and you can get grants between 2,500 to 25 million, which is, I personally think, a pretty huge grant variety in terms of how much you could get for your community. The purpose of this program is to quickly rehouse individuals experiencing homelessness or domestic violence, who are under 24, the age of 24. The Healthy Homes Production Grant is also forecasted. I wasn't able to figure out how much money is available for it, but in general, this grant program is for radon testing, lead paint reduction, older adult modification to your homes, things like that. And additionally, the lead hazard reduction grant program also potentially will be coming out soon and will be due August 7th. And then another continuum of care is just basically a bigger grant for homeless folks, and that's forecasted, unfortunately. The PRICE grant, which is the Preservation and Reinvestment Initiative for Community Enhancements. Don't we love our acronyms in the federal government? So it provides grant funding to communities to maintain, protect, and stabilize manufactured housing and manufactured housing communities. And there's quite a bit of funding available for that in the millions. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Okay, moving on to Department of Transportation grants. Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Planning and Training Grant for tribes. So I love these grants that are specifically for tribes. That means that while you are competing with the 575 other federally recognized tribes, you're not competing with the entire rest of the country for this funding. So this one, it provides funding to federally recognized tribes to train emergency responders and develop hazardous material response plans. And you can get between $50,000 to $250,000 to do that. This is actually something that's really important to be able to have emergency response plans. Our risk control group works with our members to make sure that you plan ahead, because, you know, failing to plan means plan to fail. The Technical Assistance Information to Communities grant is really interesting because it's all about pipeline safety and providing technical assistance around pipeline safety. And we have about 2 million total, and you can get between 50,000 and 1 million for this, but that deadline is coming up on June 22nd. The Nationally Significant Federally Lands and Tribal Projects Competitive Grant Program is due July 16th. And this has to do with funding for construction, reconstruction, and rehabilitation of nationally significant projects within, adjacent to, or accessing federal and tribal lands. And this is the one where you can get as low as $1 to 30 million. And they have 165 million set aside for this project. So it's definitely something worth looking at or talking to your tribal leaders about whether or not you're tapping into that to access for your community, for your tribe. Competitive Funding Opportunity Public Transportation on Indian Reservations Tribal Transit Program. And it's just basically funding for rural public transportation. 18 million total. The deadline is August 25th. Okay, so continuing with Department of Transportation grants, the Commercial Motor Vehicle Operator Safety Training Program is due June 17th. And then there's a Commercial Driver's License Program implementation. And both of these programs have to do with like funding for your CDL. Getting people who already have a CDL to get highly trained. And the purpose of it is to reduce the amount of crashes on our highways. And so these seem like a pretty important grant opportunity. The deadline, of course, is right around the corner, June 17th. High Priority Program, another one of these CDL grant programs. And then the Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvement Grant Program is due June 25th. This one has $2 billion total. in it, and it is provides funding for projects that improve the safety, efficiency, and reliability of intercity passenger, freight, and rail. Okay, we have some Bureau of Indian Affairs grants, and the first one is the Energy and Mineral Development Program, which is due June 18th. You can get between 10,000 and 2.5 million, and there's a 7.4 million total available. The this program provides financial assistance to evaluate the energy and mineral resource potential on your lands through its grants. And the next one, the Tribal Energy Development Capacity Grant, is due July 16th. There's 6.8 million total, and this one is offering funding to tribes to develop their energy business or expand their energy capabilities. And the last one for Bureau of Indian Affairs is the Native American Business Incubators Program. There's 3 million total, between 300,000 and 400,000. And the funding opportunity supports established business incubators to serve Native entrepreneurs with startup, early stage, and established businesses who will provide products or services to tribal reservation communities. We have some health and human services grants on this list. And again, I want to let you know that I put a link in the chat that has access to the entire list of grants and the links themselves, so you can just click right on it, that I'm going over in this presentation. There's also the presentation itself in that folder, and a grant worksheet that I developed called Go or No Go that helps you decide whether or not this grant opportunity is right for you, right for your tribe. Sometimes it's a little bit hard. You start planning to write a grant, and as you get through it, you realize, oh, we have to match 30%. So it's basically something that might not be possible for the tribe. So I find that sheet to be helpful for folks if they are just in the deciding whether or not it is a good opportunity for them. So we've got the Rural Communities Opioid Response Program, or RCORP, and this is a planning grant that's due July 8th. You can get up to 100,000, and there's 4 million total. Specifically, these opioid programs, because there's another one for impact, they talk about addressing substance abuse disorder, and they focus on opioid misuse in rural America, but they did seem like they opened up to address other drug addictions, methamphetamine, alcohol, things like that. So definitely, if you're looking for some kind of funding for the recovery, for addressing drug problems in our tribal communities, take a look at them, even if opioid use isn't the main focus of what you're trying to do. And then the Telehealth Nutrition Services Network Grant Program is to increase nutrition services using telehealth. You can get up to 300,000 for that, and they have 6.5 million. The deadline on that is July 8th. And then we have one more under Health and Human Services, the Regional Northern Border Region Network Planning Program. It seems like a mouthful. And it's just to strengthen existing healthcare networks in the Northern Border region. So you can get up to 100,000, and that grant program has 1.8 million total. Oh, also in nursing, or in Health and Human Services, we have a nursing workforce development program. This one actually has 20 million total, and you can get between $1 and 500,055 to basically develop workforce development programs to have more nurses in your community. So I think that's a really important one to definitely take a look at. The Embryo Adoption Awareness and Services grant is due July 10th. There's 1.9 million total, and you can get between 100,000 and 500,000. And the purpose of that grant is just to let people, to bring about awareness that you can adopt embryos for infertility, infertile couples, things like that. And then also there's a commercial fishing occupational safety training project grants. This one isn't due until January 31st, 2028. So I suspect it's like a rolling throughout the year deadline kind of situation. There's 3 million available, and you can get between 250 and 975,000. And it's really for the funding safety, education, and survival training for commercial fishermen. The Department of Homeland Security, specifically FEMA, we have the Assistance to Firefighters Grants program that's due June 22nd. You can get up to 9 million for this, and the whole program has 291 million available. This supports projects that enhance the safety of public firefighters from fire-related hazards. And then the Fire Prevention and Safety Grant Program is due June 22nd. You can get up to 1.5 million. And this one is specifically directed for fire departments and volunteer firefighter interest organizations to help them increase or maintain the number of trained frontline firefighters available in their communities. And then, actually, I think that one is the Staffing for Adequate Fire Emergency Response, so the SAFER grant. And there's 324 million available for that one. And then we have the BRIC grants, which is Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities. There's 1 billion in this grant program, and you can get up to 150 million. This is due July 23rd. So this is for upgrading and modernizing the nation's infrastructure against the growing risks to communities and the need for natural hazard risk mitigation activities to promote resilience for natural hazards. Department of Energy. So we have one grant from the Department of Energy, and the focus on it is fostering affordable, reliable, and secure energy solutions for Indian country. And the activities that it funds are construction, pre-development, planning, and assessment. I love the name of this grant program. It's Unleashing Tribal Energy Development, and it's due July 24th. So there's 50 million total for this. Between 250,000 to 7.5 million are available, or what's expected, the minimum and the maximum for grant awards. The Fish and Wildlife Service has a couple of grants that you might want to check out. The Great Lakes Restoration Initiative Joint Venture Habitat Restoration and Protection. And this one is to funds to protect and restore the wetlands and associated uplands for migratory birds and other native fish and wildlife in the Great Lakes coastal zone. And then the next one is the Great Lakes Fish and Wildlife Restoration Act funding, which is due August 3rd. And it's another grant for conservation and research in the Great Lakes region. The National Endowment for the Arts, still alive. It's got grants for arts projects due July 9th. You can get between 10,000 and 100,000, 65 million total. So that's pretty exciting. And it just supports art projects. The Employment Training Administration has a workforce opportunity for rural communities, round 7. A grant initiative for the Appalachian Delta and Northern Border regions. And that's specifically to address workforce and economic development challenges in those areas. July 23rd is the deadline. They have 49 million total, and you can get between 2 million and 8 million. So if you're a tribe in one of these areas, definitely check it out and see if you can get some workforce training development money. And then we have community-oriented policing services, which I believe is in the Department of Justice. So the COPS hiring program, the deadline for that is July 23rd. They have 157 million in this program, and my understanding is that it supports a competitive award program designed to provide funding directly to law enforcement agencies to hire and or rehire additional career law enforcement officers, deputies, in an effort to increase their community policing capacity and crime prevention efforts. So funding to get more police in your area. And of course, tribes are eligible to apply for this. National Oceanic Administration, or NOAA. We have the Marine Turtle Conservation for Sustainable U.S. Fisheries Grant Program. It's due June 30th. And it is to support projects that protect endangered marine turtles while ensuring the sustainable management of U.S. commercial fisheries, particularly longline operations in the Pacific. And the Ruth D. Gates Coral Reef Conservation Grants and Fishery Management. And this is to develop or update sustainable coral reef fishery management plans. You can get between $50,000 and $200,000 for that. The Administration for Children and Families Grants has a few grants that are out, and then most of them are forecasted. So the Street Outreach Program provides street-based services to runaway homeless and street youth who have been subjected to or at risk of being subjected to sexual abuse, prostitution, sexual exploitation, and severe forms of human trafficking. And it's forecasted, which means that it's not officially out yet, the notice of funding, but the expected deadline is going to be August 3rd. There's between 100,000 and 200,000 for grants, and they have 4 million total. The Basic Center program is for temporary emergency shelter for youth. For youth, you can also do counseling. And again, it's projected to be posted on June 22nd, with the deadline being August 3rd. So that's another one of those really short windows. So if you've got a program like that already that you're interested in getting, just start getting all the paperwork together, the budgets, things like that, so that you can meet that short deadline. This program has 27 million in it, and you can get between 100,000 and 350,000. The Tribal Court Improvement Program is to improve child welfare cases in tribal court. Again, it's forecasted and not officially posted. The expected deadline is to be July 24th. And that doesn't have very much money in it. It's got 943,000. The Native American Language Preservation and Maintenance grants, I believe they used to be in the Department of Education, and they got moved over to Health and Human Services under the Administration for Children and Family Grants. Again, that's forecasted for June 2nd to be posted, and the deadline will be July 1st. And these are language preservation grants. So any kind of like work that you're doing to preserve, teach your tribal language, there's funding available for this. The Esther Martinez Grant Immersion Program, this was supposed to be posted on May 29th, and the deadline was expected to be July 1st. It's not posted yet, but there's 4.5 million total for this grant program, so keep an eye out for it. And then the last set of grants that I have are from the Department of Justice, the Office of Violence Against Women. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the application process and the deadlines because these seem a little bit different than the other kinds of grants that I've applied to before. You have to submit an initial application in grants.gov, and then you receive an email from the Department of Justice to apply in their program, which is called Just Grants. And then you apply in Just Grants by the deadline. So I've tried to go through here and include both what the grants.gov deadline is, as well as the Just Grants deadline. So we have grants to improve the criminal justice response to domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking program. And there's 36 million total, between 400,000 and 1.5 for this program, and it's due August 18th. I believe that is the grants.gov deadline. The ICJR program assists tribal, state, and local governments and courts to strengthen the criminal justice response to domestic, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking by improving offender accountability, victim safety, homicide reduction, protection order enforcement, and coordinated law enforcement and prosecutorial action. The next one, legal assistance for victims of domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, sexual assault grant programs, due July 31st. And that program has 45 million total. It is comprehensive direct legal services for adult youth victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, dating violence, for legal matters arising out of these issues. So for example, if you need help with getting a lawyer, things like that, they have $45 million available in the grant program to set up something to help be able to get legal access for that. We have the fiscal year 2026 grants to Indian tribal governments, and that deadline is September 1st. There's 42 million for tribes, and you can get between 300 and 900. That should say 300 and 900,000, not million. But this program is basically for tribal governments to strengthen their tribal courts. And then we also have the local law enforcement grants for enforcement of cyber crimes program. There's 6.7 million total, between 350,000 and 750,000. And that deadline is coming up on September 1st. Cyber crimes are a little bit challenging to address. And so there's extra funding for that. Let's see, what do we have next? Transitional housing assistance grants for victims of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking program. July 14th, housing for people who have been experienced these crimes. Something that's often, if you are a victim of domestic violence, leaving the situation means. So funding is listed for July 31st. And then a financial assistance for victims of sexual assault, violence, dating violence, and stalking initiative, that's due June 30th. And there's 2.5 million for that. There's also grants to support families in the justice system. And July 16th, you can get between 650,000 and 800,000, 15 million total. The Rural Violence, Dating Violence, Sexual Assault, and Stalking Grant Program has 6 million total. It's due July 24th. Between 500,000 and 950,000 available. And again, rural usually means you have 50,000 people in an area or less in terms of population. Services for victims of crime. The grants.gov deadline is June 23rd. The Just Grants deadline is June 29th, and you can get up to 500,000. And then the increasing services for American Indian and Alaska Native victims of human trafficking and in urban centers program has 2.2 million in it, and you can get up to 450,000 in grant funding to address the issues of human trafficking in urban centers, specifically for American Indian and Alaska Native victims. There's a demonstration program on trauma-informed, victim-centered training for law enforcement on domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. The deadline for that one is July 29th. You can get up to 500,000, and they have 5 million total. This particular program is also called the Abby, I've forgotten her last name, but Abby Arnold program. She was assaulted on campus, and when she went to the police to report it, she didn't have a great experience, and so she went and had this legislation passed to improve experiences for future victims. Grants to improve the criminal justice response program. The deadline is August 18th. Just Grants deadline is August 20th. And they have 36 million total. There's a couple of different programs within that, so the funding amounts are different. And then there's just a rural program that's, put out through the Office of Violence Against Women. And that one has 36 million, get between 500,000 and 950,000. The Tribal Governments Grant Program, this is specifically for tribal governments, again, to be able to improve law and order on reservations. There's 42 million total, and I think the maximum is 900,000. And the Tribal Jurisdiction Program the deadline is August 11th, but the Just Grants deadline is August 13th. There's 9 million total for this, between 1 million and 1.5 million for tribal courts. I believe this is specifically to deal with jurisdictional issues, because as we know in Indian country, there's challenges in terms of tribal law, tribal police, and tribal courts not being able to charge certain crimes and having to get the FBI involved. The Tribal Sexual Assault Services Program has 7.6 million in it, and you can get up to 500,000. Those deadlines are coming up in September. And that's it for the grants that I am sharing with you today. If anybody has any questions, you can type them into the chats. I can't see the chat right now, but I will in 1 second. I also wanted to let you know that we have a conference coming up, and it's in Puerto Rico, September 16th through the 18th. You can go to AMERIND.com more about it. And so let's see if there's anybody in the comments with any questions. Nope, no questions. Excellent. I love it. That means I've shared absolutely everything that needs to be shared. So as I said in the chat, and I will send it out in the email to everybody who signed up for the webinar, you will get a whole list of every single grant that I went over and a link to that grant, so you can get more information. And if you need any help writing grants, give us a call at Amerind, and we can help you out. All right. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Really appreciate it, and have a good rest of your day.